On the side Shreya from Indian Institute of Mass Communication because I wrote a book review on your book. I wrote a
Hmm.
review, The Smart and the Dumb, The Politics of Education in India. And that was a lovely reading. Particularly, it inspired me in various. So, I would like to
Can you hear
host you
me?
for this.
Okay. Yes. So, yes, you said you have questions, so please go ahead.
Okay. The first question being that goes without saying is what actually inspired you to write this book?
So I think
The
it
basic
was I
inspiration.
needed. Sorry.
Yeah, the basic inspiration, the main idea that you thought that you would write on this topic.
Yeah. So I think for me it was just there was not much work on narrative work on on education. There was a lot of work on like public policy or just things like that, and I felt it was really important to write.
Basically, we're traveling along different places and we wrote about different incidents, one of which being the education access to special students, like those suffering with ADHD and all. So, talking about special education has not been much talked about. Like, we talk about education given to people, we talk about how there should be practical education, but we actually forget that special education or those students who are unable to get education or are with disabilities. So, how you thought that you'll be able to portray or provide that message to the audience?
Yeah, but sorry, I didn't get your question.
I
What is your
told,
question?
yeah, I told you that education has been already talked about in various books or practical education, but your book gave a different perspective. It talked about the special education, like education to being accessed with people who are suffering with special disabilities. You talked about ADHD. So, how did you get that idea that you should write a chapter in this book? You should include that chapter basically.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, so that my mother's a special educator. She's at the Madras Dyslexia Association. So I've grown up working with a lot of dyslexic children, seeing a lot of parents of children with like particular needs, like children who have dyslexia or autism. So I always felt I've seen like the struggles that they've had, and I thought like this entire idea of mainstream and what is normal needs to be changed. At least, like, there needs to be more empathy with the way people approach this question of normality and what is, that children should be a particular way and parents and mothers should be a particular way. So when I started writing the chapter, I didn't know which angle to take, and then I figured like instead of writing about the children, I'll write about the mothers because they are like, and as it came through in the chapter, they are the ones who really they struggle a lot with this because they have to be the primary caregivers, and like many times because in Indian society it's like very patriarchal, it's like it's their fault, so they have to deal with all of this. So I thought I will write about mothers instead of children.
Mhm. And that was a nice perspective. That was a very fresh perspective that I went through, and that's basically my favorite chapters. So, basically, what's your favorite chapter? Like when you're writing the book, any anecdote or quote that inspired you, or that you think that is the best part about your book, which audience can relate
Yeah,
to?
for me, my definitely like my favorite chapter is the third chapter on called Tap That Toddy. It's that where I was working with a bunch of palm tree climbers in southern Tamil Nadu. That I think like when I finished writing the chapter is when I properly understood what my book is about also, and where like I can so yeah, definitely, and that was a chapter where I learned a lot about what there is to do, what is education actually doing, how will like these very disconnected things like a ban on toddy tapping,
Yes.
like school education or higher education, how is it all connected? So yeah, definitely it's the chapter.
Okay. Next question being followed. We, if we relate to the current education system, we are always being judged on the basis of merit. One we go to placement, one we go for companies. It's always the report card, it's always the college card or your CGPA or your SGPA that is being judged, where it goes what are the skills that are inherent in a child or in a person that they can utilize. So basically today's education system has all been about merit. Talent is being ignored. So do you think that talent and hard work they go hand in hand when you talk about India's education system particularly?
I mean, I think the notion that people want to get rewarded for their talent and hard work is a very fair notion. It's important that, like, people are rewarded for their hard work. How it is being rewarded in India is the difficult prospect, and I think more importantly, what is the access that many people of different castes have had to educational opportunities that allows for their talent and hard work to be rewarded. Uh, that's I think that's at the heart of it. Anywhere in the world, the idea of merit needs to be looked at with equality of opportunity, which I think in India is a serious problem.
So you have been like you have graduated from Cambridge. You have completed your PhD from that. Is the Wi-Fi not working? Can you
Yeah,
hear my
so I'm doing
question?
a no, sorry, it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
So
doing a PhD
yeah,
in Cambridge.
your PhD from Cambridge. So what are the differences that you noticed in India's education system or in US's education system? What are the differences?
I
Whether
think it's most like yeah, yeah. It has to do with the openness and the reciprocity that students and professors have. In the place like Cambridge, you have a very close work relationship with your professor, and more often than not, like 99% of the time, they're going to be very supportive of you, and you can directly challenge them. You can directly ask. You can say, "I completely disagree with you," and that is encouraged. In India, if you go tell a professor that you disagree with, like in India, you have to treat the teacher or as a professor as a god, and you have to, like, I have in my experience many times you had to kind of stoke their egos, whereas in the West you have to, like, you should, I mean, you're very much encouraged to challenge them and tell them that they're wrong when you feel they're wrong. So that kind of completely changes the dynamics with which people interact with their peers, with their professors, and all of that.
uh, which major audience, when you were writing this book, you thought that was a target audience? That you thought that particularly youngsters, particularly people who can relate to your book, because education is such a topic that even from a child to a person who's 60 years old can relate, whether from it's their past or their present experiences. So,
Sorry, can you repeat that?
okay. So I asked that when I talked about education, we're writing that book. Which audience did you had in mind that you thought were the target audience?
Yeah, I thought like it'll be a very broad. My idea always was to write for a very broad audience. Even like my publisher asked me, "Who do you think is your target audience?" I didn't really have an answer, and I still don't, because the book is being read by a very diverse range of people. A lot of parents, a lot of people in the education sector, a lot of policymakers, politicians, but yeah,
That's
it's like a rather young and is important.
uh,
Yeah.
so basically, which was the favorite quote? Which is your favorite quote from this book?
Sorry, I don't remember anything. I don't remember quotes from my book and all. I have a poor memory that way, so yeah, no, I don't remember. I do. I mean, like if I were to pick one, it's what I ended with. Also, it's what, like, the title is about as well. That even when we are done with the great injustices of race and gender, we'll be left with the injustice of the smart and the dumb,
Yeah.
which was something that
Now
this
coming to that
American
question,
philosopher.
why did he use that oxymoron, the smart and the dumb? Why did he use that title particularly?
Because there is a school education, like I have kept saying that, like, it could solve a lot of problems, but it'll still create this one major problem, because of differential access to opportunity and quality, there will always be two classes of people. School education will always the smart and the dumb.
Do
And
you believe that there is a bunch of people who are smart and there is a bunch of people who are dumb, or everyone has
no,
some talent or skill and it's just
no, you're completely misunderstanding me. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm telling that the because of differential access
hmm,
to opportunity, like schooling to education to family to resources, and many who don't. Though those who don't have access to it, by virtue of the schooling they kind of get access to and the kind of jobs they do, they are made to feel inferior by a small group of people who have had better access to education. So that's where the smart and the dumb comes
so.
about.
Do you think that social class plays an important factor when it comes to education?
Yeah, definitely. Like caste and class play a huge role when it comes to school education. It is at the heart of, where like education provides a space through which caste and class can keep changing and moving.
Next
Yeah.
question, I would like to ask that what is the basic message that you thought that this message would be cleared when people would read my book, or this change I can make when this book gets published? And
I didn't think about it like that. I suppose I was just hoping for people to just get a different and get a sociological understanding of education. That was where it was at. That's the main idea of the book also. And if that was achieved, then I'm happy.
thanks. Any personality, any people who influenced you, any person who influenced you, you thought that you would take this idea further? Any personality who thought had an impact
Yeah,
on you?
there's an author called Samanth Subramanian.
Okay, yeah,
He had,
I've heard about it.
yes, yeah. So he's been a major influence. His writing, and now he's a friend also. He's been a major influence on my work because I've been reading him for the last like 15 years from the time I was in school. And yeah, he's a major inspiration.
Do you think that education is one such factor which, in spite of your class, in spite of your caste, in spite of your socially established, can change your life?
Sorry, your voice completely broke. I didn't hear anything.
I asked that, do you think education is such a factor which would disregard all your social class, all your factor, and ultimately your
No,
education, your hard work would matter?
absolutely not. No,
Absolutely.
absolutely not. I think we need to change that notion that education will be able to bridge or be able to erase a lot of differences based on caste and class. My argument is that education will only make the differences of caste and class even more serious, and we all need to like take that seriously.
Okay. And do you believe education is restricted to a school, to a college, a formal education, or there is a case of informal education that basically makes you a better person in life?
I think like educate like one of the aims of my book was to also show that education is a lot bigger and a lot more than uh, just schooling itself. Uh, the family, like I mentioned in my book also, there are different sides of education. There is like the army can be a site of violence, family can be a site of army can be a site of education, the family can be a site of education, all of that. So the school is just one particular spatial setting through which education. There are so many other ways also.
What role do you think a government, an established institution, or a political party? Because you connected education to politics, also you told education is political. So, what do you think the role of government plays in shaping an education of a country, the education system?
I mean, it is the government is supposed to play the biggest role, but the problem is that it's continuously uh, that role is changing a lot. So a lot of private schools are coming up, and I don't know. There's a lot of different things that are. This government can do a lot of things. It should be doing. It is doing it, but it is slowly relegating its responsibility to the private sector also.
The last question that goes, what was your best experience or an incident that while writing this book you'd want to share with us? A particular
Uh,
incident that
I
changed
mean,
you.
hmm. I mean, this book got rejected a lot by a lot of publishers.
Okay.
So over the course of 2 years, more than 15 publishers rejected this book before the book even came out. That changed the way I wrote, the changed the I don't know, but yeah, it was not easy.
So basically, it was a story from rejection to the book being
Sorry,
rejection to success. Your story went like that.
I don't understand.
You got rejected. Your book
Yeah, I mean
got
it was.
rejected. But
Yeah, yes,
you were firm
yeah.
that
So
you
I
will
just
not
had to
change.
persevere and just stay focused and just like published, which finally happened after like
Any
two
particular
years and more of publishing.
what role do you think media can play in bringing a change in education system, even if it's a small change? Because I'm particularly media student, and uh, so what role do you think that what power that media can?
I think you need to keep highlighting how caste and class works through education and not think of education as some neutral subject where caste and class and gender don't play a role. They are at the heart of it, and so you need to like keep pushing narratives of caste and class through education.
Any particular message you would want to share?
Like I said, the previous thing that was the message.
So, thanks for this engaging and insightful
It
session
has
and agreeing for the interview. It was